would be bin here. Fall is usually a busy time if you've got RVs and boats because you got to winterize things to protect them against freeze damage. This is a Keurig 2.0, a very popular coffee maker, and the insides contain quite a bit of water. There is a reservoir, there's a pump mechanism, and there's an internal heated reservoir that's very difficult to drain. You would think that it's a good idea to drain the water from a device like this before winter if you leave it in a cabin that's likely to freeze, or in an RV, or on a boat. But I'll show you that it's probably impractical for most people to do this, but not impossible. It may be better just to take your coffee maker and keep it in a warmer climate. First things first, we'll make sure that we unplug the unit. We'll remove the cover to the water reservoir. Pick up the water reservoir and pour that out in the sink. We'll remove the stage. Now we have to begin the disassembly process. First of all, we need to open this up, remove any cartridges that are in it. This chrome ring will need to be removed. It is held in place by several snaps here, 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 and here. To release the snaps, you need to apply a little pressure to the inside and then pop them up. Pressure inside and pop up. If you work a finger around the outside while you're doing that, it makes it a little easier. We'll close this back up for now. We're going to have to remove this front assembly to proceed any further. We're going to flip this thing over, and underneath you're going to find several screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. These are all Phillips screws, and we'll just remove them. Once all the screws are out, this piece on the end is the first to come off. It slides up, and then you can pull it forward to get it off. There are little hooks here that hook into place here. Then this whole front piece comes off in a similar fashion. Just push the whole thing down towards the base. See a little gap opening up there. There it goes. So this has a series of little hooks here that hold it. So you have to slide it down and then out to get it off. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 hooks on the far side, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on the near side. We can now see the inside guts of this thing here, but you can't really drain them. So we've got the water pump mechanism here. You've got the preheater tank here. And somehow we got to drain the water out of the preheater tank and the water pump to protect them from freezing. We rotate this around to the water tank side. We see there are 2 Phillips screws, one here and one here. This next bit requires a little bit of a leap of faith. There are several slots that hold this piece in here. So you just need to take something thin, pry underneath that, and pry them upwards to release the slot. And then you work your way all the way around the back side here. There are several other clips that hold this together. You want to work your way around and release each one of those clips. Okay, with the clips loose, this piece can then be lifted and slid back, although it's a little tricky because there's very tight clearances, especially right in here. There we go. It helps to take a look at the piece that we removed here. There are 4 tabs here that go into these 4 little slots. So they drop in vertically and slide down. And along the other side, along the edge, there's just some snap clips here. 2 snap clips. There's also a hole here that lines up with the hole in the chassis here for a screw. Now we're going to disrobe this thing just by lifting up. You put your thumbs in these little holes here, lift it up to separate it from the base. You may have to pull out a little bit. Okay. And kind of work your way around the outside here too. And spread it apart. And now there is a overflow that you have to release up here. So you just pull it up and then you can get this off. Okay, now we're going to remove the water intake assembly here. There are 3 clips that hold this in place. 1, 2, and the third one behind here. You just spread this out a little bit and you can pop this up. And the third clip, you can just maneuver this around. These are hose barbs on either side of this, and we'll just release these. Some water is going to drain out of these, so be ready with a towel underneath. There's some water there. Now this little valve can also contain a little bit of water here. So if you hold it over the sink and you press the little valve, you can let it drain out. Do that the other side there too. Get all the water out of that. Okay, so the fresh water comes in here. It goes through a filter, which then goes into the intake of the pump. It goes through the output of the pump, which goes into the heating reservoir. In order to be able to manipulate these tubes, we need to free the filter so that we'll have enough room to work in here. There is one Phillips screw head right here that has to be removed. So far, all the screws that we have removed from this coffee maker are all the same size, but this Phillips screw is just a tiny little bit smaller. So when we remove the screw, we'll want to make sure that we keep it separate from the others. You can see here that it's just a tiny little bit smaller. That allows us to mobilize this, get a little more room to work with. Now we're going to spin around to the front of the unit here. The pump mechanism is actually held by a single screw back here. There are 2 pivot points that are filled with a rubber bushing on either side of the pump mechanism. The one in the back is impossible to see, but you can feel it if you reach around the back, but it looks just like the one on the front. We'll need to remove this screw. Unfortunately, there's not much clearance for that, so I use a small ratchet to relieve that. And this small screw does have a plastic washer under it. You want to keep those together. So I'll put that away. Now to get some movement here, we need to lift this bushing off of a post here, and then we need to kind of push the whole pump assembly back to release these rubber bushings from their little clips here. Once you do that, you can raise this up and just kind of manipulate this pump mechanism around so we can kind of get to it a little bit. Let me go around to the side here again. This lower tube here connects to the filter. This needs to be released in here. With a little bit of pulling, actually, this just separated from the filter. When this separated here, these pieces of silicone tubing are actually held with zip ties, but there are no barbs on either end here. So the pump end of it actually just slipped off and the zip tie is actually kind of loose. But this gives us enough mobility that we can actually pull the pump around to the front and actually work on it now. We'll want to drain the water out of the filter part here. Before we undo this hose here, we need to remove the hose from the top of the heated reservoir to allow the air to displace the water that's going to come out. So that attaches at the very top of the reservoir here. It's just a barb fitting. This feeds to the head of the coffee maker. Hot water comes out and goes up and makes your coffee. But now air can go in through here to displace the water. We're going to flip this back around. Now we're going to release this barb down here, but we're going to tip this over the sink to let the water run into the sink. Alright, here she goes. So there's water draining out there. Makes you want to pee, doesn't it? To drain this pump out completely, it helps to have a little syringe that you can inject some air with. You could use a turkey base here, I guess. And I'm going to attach that to the short piece of tubing, the intake tubing of the pump here. And gently inject a little bit of air. You see some water squirt out of there. And I'm going to change the position of this. See if we can get any more water to drain. I'm going to take this short piece of tubing off of here. I'm going to use this to flush air in from the top of the hot water tank to finish clearing water out of the bottom here. So I've hooked up my syringe to the top of the hot water tank here. I'm going to squirt a little bit of air in here. When I do, we'll probably see a little bit of water drain out down here. There it goes, just a little. Alright, so now we can disconnect this. We'll reconnect this tube to the top of the water tank. And we'll just reverse our disassembly process. So we have drained out all the water from the inside of our Keurig 2.0 and have reversed our disassembly instructions. This should be suitable for shipping or long-term storage. I kind of doubt that most people would be willing to go through this much trouble. Well, there you have it. While this is not a project for a novice do-it-yourselfer, it is possible to take one of these apart and drain the water out of it. But boy, it's a lot of work. It might be easier to pour in some RV antifreeze and churn that through, although I don't know how that's going to react chemically with the heating element. But anyways, if you're looking forward to a real challenge, again, it's possible. It'll take you a little bit of time, but that's how I did it. See you later. Bye.